Hello. Hello there. Good evening. How are you doing? I hope you're well and having a good day. It's Joseph Massie here. How exciting. Hope everybody is well. It is 7 o'clock this evening here in Manchester, England, where we are broadcasting from this evening. A very, very good evening to you. I hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day or have had a very good day, wherever you are dialing in from this evening. Um, Anna from Poland, hello. Nikki says hi. Miriam from France, hello. Nikki from the UK. So Young from South Korea. Now you're in the UK. Hello there. Camilla from the UK. Young from New Zealand. Michelle from Buckinghamshire. France, hello, hello. Eliza from Australia. Well, I mean, you get the credit. I do have to say, Eliza from Australia. I don't know what time it is where you are, but all the dedication points go to you. Congratulations, Jamie from San Diego. How are you doing? Hope you are well and all is good. Alison from Bedford, USA, Florida. Hello, Anna. Janita from Netherlands. Donna from Portland, Oregon. A place I have yet to visit, but I'm dying to. It's very much on my list, Donna. So if we get on, extend the invitation. Why not? Tina from Iceland. Cece from Michigan. This is fabulous. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. Good morning, wherever it is indeed that you are dialing in from. My name is Joseph Massey, and I'll be your host and tutor for today's session. We're going to be diving into an incredibly juicy topic today. We're doing the 7 steps to building your wedding flower business. To those people who are just starting out or have maybe made the decision to start out, but also maybe don't know exactly where to begin. It's going to be a really good session. Now, a little heads up, I do have to tell you, it is going to be a long session this evening. So if you can't stay for the whole thing, don't worry. I mean, of course, we love you. We love you here at Learn Joseph Massey, but we would love you to stick around for the whole session. But if you can't, I understand. Usually my live classes, we wrap them up within the hour because I know I am a priority in everybody's life, but of course, there's a lot going on, and an hour is a long time. But today's class will be approximately somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. What it really comes down to is you guys. I'm here live tonight with you to answer all of your questions when it comes to how to build, how to start your wedding flower brand. It's going to be a great class, and we will have a replay available for 1 week only. So if you don't manage to take in the whole class tonight, please do not worry. You have a little bit of time to check in on this class at a future date. It'll be available very, very soon for you. So probably we'll get that up sometime tomorrow within the next 24 hours. A big thank you to you, first of all, for coming here this evening, for joining me this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you're dialing in from. We are 120 participants strong already, which is a very exciting sign, a very good sign indeed. And I really, really appreciate your energy and your passion being here with me this evening, and the energy and the passion you have for our craft to look to kind of start and grow your own wedding flower business. Now, of course, it is a very exciting night tonight. We tonight are launching not only our live webinar with 123 of you across the world, we are also launching our wedding masterclass. Now, I have a very small handful of masterclasses that I launch only once per year. And tonight we are launching the wedding masterclass. And for the next couple of days, it's going to be on sale for 50% off. And for those of you that are here this evening, you are getting access before anybody else. So nobody else has access in the world at all to the wedding masterclass right now, apart from you guys who are here this evening. Now, the wedding masterclass is 50% off only for the next couple of days. And for you guys, it includes 8 bonuses. So not only does it contain a huge wealth, over 20 different lessons with me, diving into the business of founding your own wedding flower business, and of course, the floral skills for over 12 different hands-on projects. It is full of live interactions too. So the bonuses that we're including with the wedding masterclass tonight are 3 live classes with me. In addition to that, 3 months of my flower class membership, which has over 250 classes in there too. You also get 3 additional live classes within the flower class coaching seminar. And in In addition to that, we have access to the Flower Class community, a hydration chamber tutorial, the wiring guide, and indeed the best flowers for guide. So we've packed it with 8 additional very sexy bonuses. So if you're maybe on the fence, maybe, check out today's lesson, see how we get on during our webinar. But if you like what you see, for you guys here tonight, you have premium access, the first access in the world to this year's wedding masterclass. If you're on the fence, I think it is a great opportunity to learn not just the floristry behind a wedding business, but also indeed the business side of it, how to start off. So a very warm welcome to you if you are just joining us. We are 138 people strong this evening. Well, a warm welcome to you. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It is a very delicious Thursday evening here in Manchester. I've had a fabulous day in my studio. I've been filming all day for Flower Class, so I feel very creatively jazzed, if that's the word. I feel buzzed. I feel full of creative energy. And usually, sometimes at the end of a good day of creativity, I can feel a little bit tired. But tonight, I'm excited. I'm excited because we're launching the Wedding Masterclass. I see Jamie there has said the Wedding Masterclass is amazing and well worth it. Thank you so much. I will slip you that crisp $20 later, Jamie. Thank you very much. No, but I mean, it's wonderful to know. It's wonderful to hear that. Thank you so very much. The Wedding Masterclass is available 50% off, but that aside, we'll come back to that later. Tonight, do we have a very, very special lesson we're going to be diving into? So it's going to be at least an hour and a half tonight, guys. So 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I'm here live to answer all of your questions. And I guess it depends on how many questions you have. If you have a ton of questions, we'll be here all night. Maybe not all night. Okay. Maybe not all night. I mean, I'm dedicated to my job, but we have to sleep, of course. A balance is what we're all after all. But no, we're here tonight to answer your questions. So let me tell you a little bit about how our session tonight is going to be working. So very first things first, we're going to begin tonight with 4 individual sessions. So we have 4 parts to tonight's live class, and we're going to take a break between each class. Now, the first session of the class is around about 15 minutes long. Then the second session is around about 15 minutes long as well. Following that, the 2 final sessions are each about half an hour long. They are quite full on. They're full of detail. So that's kind of the layout of tonight's evening. We're going to work through 4 different sessions, and in between each session, we will break for a Q&A. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot advise enough to please ask as many questions as you want this evening. I guarantee you, if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it too, right? Someone else has got that idea already of how they kind of maybe are assessing the information and want to find out more. So please, please, please use the little chat box. The little chat box is this thing that should be flashing at the bottom of your screen. It's right here. Please type in all of your questions into the chat box. And after each segment, after each quarter of our sessions tonight, I will dive on into those questions. And of course, at the very end, we'll do a big Q&A roundup too. Now, tonight's session, as mentioned, we're going to dive on into right now. We're going to be starting 7 steps to how to build your wedding flower business here tonight, live with me. We are 140 people strong. You're live with Joseph Massie, broadcasting live from Manchester. Welcome, a very, very warm welcome to 7 steps on how to start your wedding flower business. I hope you have your notebooks ready. I hope you've got your pens ready. Ask your questions. I am here for you guys tonight to dive on into how to build the very best wedding business and how to start your wedding flower business. But even if you're already maybe have a good amount of experience, or maybe you're kind of already starting a little bit about kind of, your first steps are kind of in motion, please do not worry. There should be plenty of tips in here that you can already take and apply to your existing business. So a warm welcome to everybody here. Thank you so very much for joining me tonight for the launch of the Wedding Masterclass and for our live webinar, 7 steps on how to launch your wedding flower business. And Nikki is ready. Jamie is ready. Everyone's ready. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go, says Alice. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. So buckle up. Notepads ready. Pens ready. Let's dive in to our very first module. Hello there, and welcome to today's flower class lesson 7 Steps to Start a Wedding Flower Business. My name is Joseph Massie, and I'll, of course, be your host and tutor for today's session and for the forthcoming sessions, in which we're going to be doing a deep dive into 7 steps on how to start a wedding flower business. Now, this indeed is a signature series within Flower Class, one of our esteemed mini courses to get you the results that you need within your practice and within your business. Now, in this 4-part series, we're going to be diving in very much into exactly how to begin. What are the key steps that we need to do, that we need to practice to bring our wedding flower business into fruition in whatever shape or form will work best with us. Let's take a little preview now of the upcoming categories we're going to be diving into in our forthcoming sessions. Now, as you may have already guessed from the title of this signature series, this is indeed a 7-step process, which really you will benefit most from if you work through it in order. That said, you may not be right at the very beginning of your journey to start a wedding flower business. You may already have a wedding flower business, or indeed, you may be in the middle of the process with this. So do feel free, as ever, to use this flower class lesson in the most beneficial way for you. So if you do want to skip forward, please do feel free. And equally, if you're right at the very beginning of this process, welcome, pull up a seat with your notebook, of course, and we'll begin by diving into the first part of our 7-step process, how to clarify your intention. Let's dive on in. Now, if there's one thing that I know to be true, especially when it comes to starting anything, whether it's a personal goal or a business goal, is that clarity and clarification is your new best friend. Whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's something in your personal life, a personal goal, or maybe it's something within the business or even starting a business, the clearer you are about exactly what you want to achieve, the faster you will achieve it, the more success you will have, the easier it will be. I mean, literally, clarification is a superpower, and in my opinion, often we as a community don't spend enough time necessarily working out exactly what it is we want to achieve. So in this very first step, what I want you to do is have a really good think about, what does your dream wedding flower business look like? What exactly does that look and feel like to you? Is it a flower studio? Are you working from home? Is it an office somewhere with a studio space attached? What exactly does that look like? It's a pretty big question, right? It's not something that I expect you to immediately have the answers to right away, because it's such a big question. You may feel right now on this session that you know you want to start a wedding flower business in some way, some shape, or some form, but maybe you haven't thought through the exact details of what exactly that wedding flower business will look like. Well, let me help you. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to build some parameters. We're going to exactly set some limitations or some boundaries about what exactly we want to manifest, what exactly it is that we want to build. Parameters are important because they help you define what exactly it is that you want to achieve. Because without some idea of what it is we want to bring into fruition, we could end up with anything, or even worse, end up with nothing, or maybe even worse than that, end up with something that we don't really want, that doesn't really suit us, that doesn't really help us to fulfill our goals. Parameters essentially help you define your goals, and as I've mentioned previously, definition builds clarity, and clarity builds speed. I guarantee you, by spending a few moments with me now, helping to kind of define what exactly your ideal wedding flower business looks like, will save you so much time, so much effort, and so much heartache further down the road, simply because we're starting out with the end clearly in mind. Now that clarity may be all very well to talk about, Joe, but how do we actually achieve it? Now, that's a great question, and something that we'll work together through now. What I'd love you to do is grab a notebook and a pen and join me, essentially in hopefully a quiet space where you're not going to be disturbed, and together we'll work through this list of questions, which will hopefully give you a little bit more of a detailed vision of exactly what it is you want to build, exactly what type of wedding flower business that you want to manifest. Let's go through these questions one by one together. together. First up, where will you operate? What does the foundation of the business look like? What does the building look like? Are you working from a studio space, maybe ground floor, or does that not really matter to you? Are you up on the seventh floor of some fabulous building in the flower district? Are you working from home? Are you working from a flower shop, like a retail space? What does your dream look like? What does the building look like? What kind of space will the building inhabit? That's the first thing we want to examine. From there, we want to think about what size weddings do you want to produce? Are you creating small weddings, like flowers that are for elopements, that are pick up and go, essentially, by the couple, of course, in more ways than one on an elopement? Or are you creating the full kind of wedding package? Are you creating installations for the ceremony and bridal bouquets and personal flowers and centerpieces too? What does your perfect wedding look like? Not necessarily for you yourself to get married, but what does your perfect wedding look like that you want to produce? How big is it? How many items is it? How many people will you require to bring this together? What type of wedding do you want to create? What kind of wedding would make you happy to begin to pull together? Because obviously your happiness is a part of this too. There's no point spending all of this time and all of this energy on creating something that you really have very little interest in, or that doesn't make your heart sing. So what we're looking here is to kind of tick all of our boxes. In an ideal world, what would our ideal wedding flower business look like? What kind of weddings do you want to create? From there, our next question, part 3, is how many weddings do you want to take a year? Here in England, in Northern Europe, our traditional wedding season usually runs from around late April, early May, through to around the end of September, the beginning of October. So it really is a maybe 6 or 7 month period, as a 6 or 7 month season that we have to make all of our wedding flower sales. It's highly unusual for weddings to take place in November, December, January, February, and March, or even early April. So you usually have a finite amount of time during which you want to be able to make your sales. Now, given that we have this finite amount of time available to a florist each year, now, of course, my wedding seasons may differ depending upon your location, your culture, seasonality, temperatures, all of that type of thing. But as a general rule, everywhere in the world, you will have a succinct wedding season. And how many weddings do you want to take on each and every single year? Do you want to be booked out with one big fabulous wedding each weekend all the way through from April to September? Do you want lots of smaller weddings every single weekend? I've known florists at both ends of that scale. Florists that maybe take 5 or 10 bookings over an entire season, over an entire year, and I've also known florists that take 200 weddings over a season or over a year. So it's entirely up to you to kind of spend some time thinking about what exactly it is you want to do. How many weddings do you want to take each year? Now, on the surface, this is a pretty simple question, right? How many weddings do you want to take on a year? But what I'm kind of trying to get you to do right here is to drill down a little bit deeper into what kind of balance that you want in your life. What kind of work-life balance do you want to achieve? If you take on a wedding every single weekend over the whole year, maybe that might be your dream at first, but I guarantee you after a little while, you're going to be wanting some time off, some balance between your personal life and your work life. So have a real good think about these initial 3 questions. Where will you operate? What kind of building, what kind of structure do you ideally want to have in place? What size weddings do you want to produce? And how many weddings that you want to take in over a year? Those are kind of the 3 main initial questions that will put some parameters on the vision for your business and hopefully help you clarify your intention of what it is exactly that you want to achieve. With those big 3 initial questions out of the way, I want you to dive on in now to questions 4 to 9, all of which will help add some nuance into your vision to help clarify the intention for your wedding flower business. Question 4 is how far do you want to travel? Now, initially that seems like a very spiritual question. How far do you want to travel? But what I mean by that is, are you basically only offering pick up and go weddings? Are you offering delivery and setup and installations within maybe half an hour or an hour from your studio? Or are you offering to travel nationwide or internationally? This begins to add nuance into exactly how you see your business, who your clientele is, and essentially what services you want to be providing. You'll need to consider things like, do you need vehicles, and how many vehicles do you think you'll need to be able to service the weddings that you want to take on at the size that you want to take on for those weddings? Will you need a team? I mean, I would say without doubt, yes, you will, but how big a team will you require? How many staff do you see being maybe full-time or part-time, and how many freelance staff will you need? Do you see how all of these questions kind of interlace a little? And if it feels a little overwhelming, just go with your gut. Just go with what you feel that initially makes the most sense for you. Of course, this is just an initial exercise to clarify your intentions. But over the next couple of weeks and couple of months, as you begin to build your business, you'll be able to kind of adjust this vision, to clarify it, and to help it maybe tweak into reality as you begin to work through the steps. Other questions you want to be asking yourself right at the very beginning are, will you need investment? Will you need additional training? And of course, what is your exit strategy? How do you see yourself leaving this business? Will you be leaving upon retirement when you're in your 60s or early 70s? Or indeed, is this a business that you can look to sell within several years? Or would you never want to sell it? It's entirely up to you. Now, the whole point of working through these questions is really to take your passion, this idea that you have, that you want to thrive within the wedding flower business, that you want to start your own wedding flower business, and begin to take that passion and to structure it into a vision that works well for you, a vision that fits your goals, that will help you meet your goals. And by doing this exercise, I promise you, we're saving so much time further down the road, because we won't have to change and adapt necessarily to create a whole new business or a whole new branch of the business to fit a different whim or a different goal. Clarifying your intention now will give you great success in the future. Honestly, please trust me. The clearer you are on what it is you want to achieve, the faster you will achieve it, and the chances are the happier you will be with the outcome. Take some time now, or indeed some time after our session today, and work through these questions one at a time. First up, we've got our initial 3 questions. These are the big ones that will help solidify the bones of the business. From where will you operate? What does the structure of the business look like? What size weddings do you want to produce? And how many weddings a year or a season do you want to produce? From there, we can dive into questions 4 to 9, all of which dive into the nuance of the business. How far do you want to travel? Will you need vehicles? And if so, how many and of what type? What is the makeup of your team? How many maybe full-time or part-time or freelance staff will you require? Will you need any additional investment for this business? And while at the same point, will you need any additional training for this business? Finally, take a think about what your exit strategy will be. Are you looking to exit this business in the next 3 to 5 years, or is this a lifelong passion coming to fruition? Spend some time now, work through these questions, and I promise you by the end of working through these questions, you'll have a far clearer idea of exactly what it is that you want to create.
All right, there we are. Part 1, nicely completed, I will say. Well, I think it's nicely completed. All about clarifying your intention. All about drilling down deep into finding out exactly what it is that you want to create, that you want to build yourself. Questions are welcome in the chat, guys, right here. Please do feel free to drop any questions in whatsoever that you have. Now, initially, of course, this is just the first part of our session, and it's all about really clarifying what it is that you want to create. At the minute, I know for sure I was very much in this position myself. When I started out, I thought to myself, oh, I want to do weddings. I want to do weddings, but it can be that maybe isn't the clearest, best way to begin. It's all very well to want to start creating weddings, but what exactly do you want to build? What type of weddings? How big are they? How far do you want to travel? All of these things, if you consider them now, I guarantee will help you reach your goal, will help you reach your target quicker and easier. It means you'll make less mistakes, you'll have to take less detours, and you'll definitely have to do less U-turns in the road if you know exactly what it is you want to achieve, simply because you're beginning with the end in mind. One of my favorite books that I read when I was a teenager is by Stephen R. Covey, which is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And the very first habit there is beginning with the end in mind. And that's what we're really starting to do here this evening. Begin clearly with the end in mind. Hope everyone's enjoying the content so far. Hope we are all feeling excited and ready to rock and roll as we dive on into part two. Give me a little hand raise or a little emoji if all is good, you're enjoying yourself. So three, okay, so many people already. How brilliant. Loving that. Now, of course, we're going to dive in now to part two, which it gets a little bit more interesting. Thank you so very much for being here. Let's dive in on now to part two as we begin to look to build your business. Lovely question, actually, before we dive in from Veronica. Here's one come in. Veronica says, for somebody starting their business and offering full service wedding planning that includes floral design, how many weddings a year seems reasonable? Okay, that's a really great question, Veronica. And in my opinion, it depends a lot on what level of service you want to provide. So I know a fabulous wedding planner in the UK, Katrina Otter, fabulous wedding planner, ranked number one in the UK on Google for wedding planning, and she takes 8 weddings a year. 8 weddings a year, that's all. But because of the level of detail and service that she provides to her luxury clients, that is absolutely ample for her business to thrive and succeed and grow in the rate and the direction that she wants it to grow. And therefore, that ticks her box. I would say, to be honest with you, it really depends on what feels comfortable for you. And in a way, you will only find that by doing it. Does that make sense? I know that's a kind of terrible answer, but when you take on too much, you'll know for sure. So my experience would be build until it feels right for you. That's what I would say. Build until it feels right for you. And at some point you'll know, oh, I'm taking on a little bit too much here, and you can scale things down and increase your prices. So I hope that helps there. Great little question from D that's come in. Realistically, how long of the ride is to be profitable? I assume it depends on resources, but for the average person. So that's a really good question. To be very honest, I have to say that when I started my studio, I didn't have any reserve cash at all whatsoever. So all of I did is every single job had to be profitable from day one. And I could only grow at the rate that I did because we were profitable, if that makes sense. So I didn't have thousands of pounds set aside for the business. I didn't have investors in any way, shape, or form. So when I was starting out, every single job had to be profitable from day one. So, in the sense that when you begin, you should be profitable from day one. Absolutely. I mean, depending on what kind of infrastructure you have, if you purchase vehicles or have a large studio space or something of that nature, then maybe that can take a little bit of time. But for sure, for me anyway, you should be profitable from day one. That's what my advice would be anyway. Jamie has said, where's the comment? This is such a good reminder, and it makes so much more sense after doing a few weddings. I bet it's all good. Veronica, thank you so much for the response. You're so welcome. D, you were just brilliant then. Oh, flattery, D, will get you everywhere. Flattery will get you everywhere. I appreciate it. Hey, Yulia, good to know you're here. Hope you're well. Hope all is good there. All right, Sam has said, how is best to answer these intention questions if you want to start small with bouquets and buttonholes and then hope to expand for a full wedding offering? The beginning is different to the end in mind. That's fine. Begin with what your first step is. That's what I would begin on. If you know exactly, Sam, what the very first step is for you and what you want that business to look like, focusing on bouquets and buttonholes, then build to that. And then once you feel you're at a place where you've mastered that level of business and it feels comfortable and profitable and you know what you're doing, then redo this exercise. Answer these questions again as for what the next step of the business might look like. I mean, the best thing I can say to you, Sam, is that business is This sounds so corny, and I'm sorry for saying this to you, but it is like a journey. You know, it changes every step of the way. You have a new goal or a new product or a new idea or a new passion or a new service. So don't be afraid of kind of redoing this process. If you know where you want to begin, then focus these questions on exactly what you want to achieve in the short term, and then maybe reflect on these questions again in the future to realize what it is you want to achieve in the long term. But a great question. Thank you so much. Wilden Wild says, I'm starting small, offering fixed packages for bijou weddings locally all year round. How long does it take to get established? I have a limited budget for marketing. I'm really finding it hard. I'm really finding it a hard market to break. Okay, so two questions kind of I'm guessing Wild and Wild. First one to me is how long does it take to get established? That really depends on how it a few things. It depends on the work that you're doing, how effective the work that you're doing is. And when I say the work that you're doing, it has nothing to do with your floristry skills. I mean, your marketing skills, your promotional skills, how much time you're spent to kind of build a community and reach out to people in your community. It really depends on how effective you are at all of those things to get established. I mean, I would say because of the nature of weddings, usually it's a good 2 to 3 years before you kind of feel you get that fabulous feed of repeat customers and recommendations. Because weddings are such an emotional purchase that having other people's validation, I find, and other people's recommendation is a really great way to help build your business. And that doesn't kick in the first year or even the first 2 years, to be fair. It takes a little bit of time to seed that. The second question there is I'm finding it really hard to break the market. The first thing I would do there is assess how large. I would probably, no, what I would do is do some market research. I would assess, is the market you think you're targeting truly there and how large that market actually is. And then from there, if you kind of get a feel for what your local market is like, then you can maybe adjust your marketing or adjust your services or adjust your pricing so that it's a better reflection to fit the marketing. Actually, the next section that we're going to be diving into, part two, will be really valid for that question. So I would put a pin a little bit for that for now, and we'll dive into that very, very shortly for you. So I hope that helps. Nikki says, Joseph, where did you start? In a studio? Yes, indeed. I was in a very unglamorous warehouse in my hometown of Liverpool. Nothing glamorous there at all, but yes, very much in a studio. Nadia says, this may seem like a stupid question. No such thing. What's the difference between paying yourself and being profitable? Okay, great question. So, of course, you will need to pay yourself in a business, but profitability comes once you have paid everything out of the business. So your rent, your rates, any vehicle hire, all of your flowers, your employees, insurance, marketing costs, advertising costs, everything all together. And you won't really definitely know how profitable you are. I mean, you'll have an idea if you kind of do the numbers every month, but you won't really have a full figure until the end of the first year, Nadia. But definitely you want to be paying yourself if you can for as soon as you can. That said, Nadia, when I started my business, I paid myself £500 a month for the first year, and I was terrified of paying myself anymore. And then my accountant was like, you can pay yourself more. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And then I increased it to like £750 and I felt like a millionaire. And then I slowly built it up. So that was what I did. I never wanted to put too much pressure on my business at the beginning. So I built it up like a step at a time. But yeah, I do not miss those days. I'm very glad the business is more established now, just as I'm sure yours will be in the future. All right, a question from Berta. Here we are. Berta says, what is the best way to market my wedding flower business to an alternative audience? At first, I wanted any clients, but now I want to specialize in different and creative weddings. Okay, you've made my day, Berta, because that is exactly truly right. Nobody is a supermarket. Nobody should try and do everything for everyone, in my opinion. You are not Walmart. You are not Tesco. You are not Asda. You are a creative, distinctive, artistic, wonderful floral designer, and you want to have an ideal client in mind. We are doing a full chapter on this, so please hold on tight. And then once we get to this chapter in half an hour or so, please let's chat more about this because it's really, really, really powerful. We do have a full marketing section to go, so just hold tight for now. This is better is I'm not sure what that face means, but that's okay. That's fine. All right, everyone sounds good. Let's move on now to part two of our 7 steps to starting our wedding flower business. All right, let me know if you can hear the audio. I always want to make sure that everyone can hear it because I can't tell that. So if you can hear the audio, just give me a little thumbs up or a little hands up or something, and we'll dive in now to part. Oh, okay. The emoji. That's good. Thank you. I was like, oh, better. I'm sorry. I'm glad that you're good. All right, let's move in now to part two of 7 steps to start your wedding flower business. All right, over to you guys.
Now, as you may have gathered, this is indeed a 7 step process, and in today's session, we're going to be diving on in to part 2 and 3. Part 2, building your brand, and part 3, how to identify your ideal customer. Let's begin by taking a look at part 2, building your brand. Now, assuming you have been an incredibly industrious student, I am sure you have completed part 1, and by this point, you've got a pretty clear idea of what exactly it is that you want to build, what type of wedding flower business it is that you want to bring into fruition, how many weddings you want to take on each and every year, from what kind of premises that you actually want to be producing them from, and indeed how large those weddings are, along with other nuances that'll help you get a really clear idea of the type of business that you want to build. As part 2, after completing clarifying your intention, we're going to begin to build a brand around you. What I mean by that is that we want to build a brand around your skills, around your experiences, and around your story. Why, you might ask, why exactly do we want to build the brand around you? Well, for several reasons. First up, in my experience, the best brands feel authentic. They have a real backbone to them, a real story, a real founder's story that people want to know. People in general want to do business with people, not brands. So the more authentic your brand feels, the absolute better, and usually the more successful you will be. Also, we want the brand that we're building to have longevity. Businesses very rarely start and finish their life within a matter of months or within maybe even a year or two. Often businesses are built to last. So we want to build this brand around you, something that feels very authentic and something that you won't essentially be bored with within a couple of years. We don't want to build something that you're going to lose interest in or maybe lose the passion for. So if we build your brand around your skills, your experiences, your story, your passions, your interests, everything that makes you you, I guarantee you'll have more interest in the business and be more inclined to weather those tougher moments that can come along. The final reason that we're building a brand around you is so it will act as your USP. Nobody can do you quite like you, so let's build that into our brand. Let's build that into the moat that will protect our business. Let's make it authentic, long-lasting, and entirely and utterly unique. Now, what exactly do we mean by building a brand or founding a brand? Now, I was lucky enough to attend a branding course a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I remember our lecturer discussing really, really clearly was that branding is often the intangible. Branding is the way something makes you feel. It's a force, it's something that is more than the sum of its parts. It's an identity that conveys exactly what a business is about, and it's an identity with power because it's that identity that will make you feel a certain way. Now that we've spent some time clarifying exactly what it is that we want to achieve, it's now time to begin building the essence of those goals, of those ideas, into our brand, into an identity that will make your ideal client feel a certain way, and hopefully that way is passionate and excited and wanting to book you for their wedding. Now, although a brand is essentially an intangible force that makes people feel a certain way, There are five key ways in which we can tell our brand story. And what we mean by the brand story is ways in that people can connect to the identity of what your brand is all about. First up, of course, we have the name of the brand. That's so, so important to get a name that we love, that we feel will last, that's essentially the duration that we want to be involved in the business. We can also have a logo, a choice of colors, a choice of the copy or the text that we use, and of course the imagery that we associate with our brand. These five things often combine together to help you tell your story. Now, when you're considering exactly what name to go for, or what logo to go for, or what copy you want to have on your website, the tone of the language that you use, the imagery, the colors, all of that type of stuff, what I want you to do is to remember these key 3 pointers. First up, when we're building our brand, I want you to take the long view, play the long game, and build with longevity. Try not to follow any initial current trends or initial looks or feels that are kind of incredibly popular right now. Instead, look to build something that you think has the legs to go the distance. Also, I want you to begin to consider how your brand will relate and connect to your ideal customer. Now, of course, in a short while, we're very much going to be diving in into a lot more detail about who our ideal customer is and why it's important to have a very clear vision of who that customer is. But right now, I want you to just begin thinking, well, hang on, is what I want to achieve, are my goals in alignment with the brand that I'm building, and are they going to be in alignment with who my ideal customer is? As mentioned, it's something we will be diving on into in a short while, but for now, just begin to kind of marinate on that idea. Will the brand that I'm building, who is it for? Who do I want it to connect with? And finally, I want you to build it with a sales value. Now, what I mean by this is ideally you'll have an exit strategy for your brand in your head about what it is that you want to achieve. So try and build with that in mind. Try and build the business. So if, for example, in the future, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you decide that you want to sell this business, it's in a position to be able to be sold with ease because essentially you've built something that is a little separate from you. What we want to do is build a brand that's based upon your ideas and your look and your style and your story, but isn't necessarily you and doesn't necessarily require you to be a part of it for the business to be successful. So build with longevity, build with a connection to your ideal customer, and build very much with the end in mind. Essentially, the steps to help you build a brand are pretty simple. You need to pick a name and pick colors and pick a logo and pick a tone and write some copy and kind of build essentially the footprint, essentially the backbone of the brand. But how exactly do you begin that? Well, I've got a few handy tips for you on how you can begin to get inspiration and ideas to start to whittle down exactly what kind of brand identity you're looking to build. A couple of steps right here for you. First one, begin daydreaming. Now, I know you're thinking, what? That's crazy. What do you mean begin daydreaming? What I mean by that is begin to kind of allow yourself the creativity, the joy, and the mental space to think of, well, I'm designing the business of my dreams here. What exactly would I want my brand to say? What exactly do I want my brand to convey? And what emotions do I want my brand to bring up when people are experiencing it? Also, begin with a mood board. I'm a huge fan of beginning with a private little Pinterest page. Sometimes I think they're called a secret board on which you can pin ideas that no one else can see. But you can do this on a PowerPoint or a Keynote document, something like that. Begin to pull together maybe logos and colors and textures and copy that you like the look of, that you feel could amalgamate into something very different, into something that is your brand as opposed to other people's. Tip 3 is begin with a list of names. If you're considering a brand name that maybe isn't your own direct name, then start a little list, just a list of any and all ideas that spring into your mind. And then obviously keep going back to it every couple of days, once a week maybe, and begin to whittle down until you have a short list of a few names that you want to go with. From then, you can seek external feedback from people, ask ask friends and family and maybe even potential customers on what they think about your brand name. That's a great way to begin to whittle down a really cool brand name for your new brand identity. Tip 4 is, of course, the easiest route. Begin working with a graphic designer to help pull together your brand identity. But I will say, before you do this, you're going to want to have at least some initial ideas about what it is that you want to achieve. A great little shortcut is tip 5, and that's to begin taking a look on Canva at potential templates, potential logos. This is a really simple, great way forward because, of course, a Canva account is free, and you'll gain so much inspiration by looking at what is already provided on the templates there. And from there, you can then begin to personalize that, or maybe riff off an idea with a graphic designer, or indeed riff off it using your own skills if you're looking to create your own brand name or brand logo. It's all of these steps that can help bring together the initial starting point. It seems very complicated sometimes to begin to build a brand, but essentially all you're doing is picking the notes that we've talked about so far. You're picking names, you're picking colors, you're picking a logo, you're picking a tone, you're writing copy. All of those things are essentially just decisions, selections that you have to make to bring a brand into reality. It's a fun process, and always know that you can tweak things as you go. Now, you may be thinking, well, hang on, Joe, you just spent some time telling me to gain clarity so I don't make mistakes, and that is very true. But in business, especially if you've been in business for any amount of time, you know that over time things can change, and you may want to do some tweaks from initially the idea that you had when you started out to what you'll end up with today. And that, my friend, is no bad thing. Now, at this stage, we've been pretty brilliant. I hope you don't mind me saying, but we've been pretty brilliant because not only have we clarified exactly what type of wedding flower business it is that we want to build, we've also now begun to build our brand, or at least sow the seeds, the ideas that will develop into our brand. So far, so good. For our next step now, part 3, what we're going to do is take the focus off us for a little while. How disappointing, I know, and put it squarely on somebody else. And that somebody else is our ideal client, our ideal customers. What I want us to spend some time now diving on into is exactly defining and clarifying who we are selling to. Now, in corporate jargon, we would call this building a customer profile. And what we mean by that is building up an idea of exactly who it is that we are looking to sell to. If we close our eyes, sit down in a quiet space, and picture who our ideal customer is, we want to know everything about that person as clearly as possible. We want to really form a three-dimensional picture of how that person lives, who that person is, and what motivates them to purchase from us. What struggles do they have? What goals do they have? And what will really pique their interest and get them to connect with us, to know and to like our brand and to purchase from us. What we want to do really is have a really clear idea of who our ideal customer is so that we can build in alignment. Now, you may have heard me talk a little bit about this earlier on in our session, in that there are 3 steps to connect a business in alignment, and what those are, we very much begin with our own goals. We clarify what it is we want to achieve. Then we'll build a brand around ourselves, around those goals, to align with our perfect customer, our ideal customer. And when those 3 things are firmly and clearly in alignment, nothing can stop your business. Now, the reason for this is that obviously those 3 things have to be in alignment to make sales happen. Your ideal customer has to be attracted to your ideal brand. And then, of course, you'll be thrilled when the brand is achieving your goals. And those 3 things, that level of alignment, is most definitely what we're trying to achieve in this process to make sure that our goals are being fulfilled, the brand's goals are being fulfilled, and of course, your client's goals are being fulfilled as well by purchasing from you as you're helping to alleviate a pain point or provide a pleasure point instead. These three things, your goals, your brand, and your customer, are most definitely the target of the first couple of steps that we've dove on into within our 7 steps to building a wedding flower business. And this is because, as I've mentioned previously, you've no interest in building something that doesn't fulfill your goal, something that won't provide the money that you want to make, or the experiences that you want to have, or the opportunities that you want to have for yourself. There's no point at all in building something that doesn't achieve anything for you. So then, with those goals in mind, we want to then build a brand that appeals to our ideal customer. And when those three things, your goals, your brand, and your customer, are firmly in alignment, the sky is truly the limit. From now, let's begin to think a little bit about building our customer profile and what that journey looks like. Now, to achieve a clear picture of exactly who your ideal customer is, I want you to sit down with your trusty notebook and your pen, and I want you to really consider who this person is. Who exactly is your ideal customer? Now, so far in our process, we've already talked a lot about definition, about building parameters to help us, identify exactly what our ideal goals are, what kind of wedding flower business we wanted to create. I'm going to encourage you to dive on into that same level of definition here. Who is your ideal customer? Who are they? What do they earn? Where do they shop? What do they wear? What do they drive? And then, more importantly, what kind of venue would they pick to hold their wedding in? What kind of suppliers that you know of would they also book? What kind of clothes would they wear? What kind of dress or tux or any other type of outfit would they purchase to wear on their wedding day? How many guests would they have? What kind of social class or area or culture would those guests come from? Where would they spend their honeymoon? I want you to identify answers to all of these questions because the more of a three-dimensional image that you can build of your ideal client, of your ideal customers, the more in alignment we can make our brand and to make sure that our brand achieves our goals. Now, this is really important. Having a really good idea of who your ideal customer is can only benefit you because then in the future, when you're building your website, when you're building your socials, when you're hosting shoots to build your portfolio, when you're designing new products, essentially when you're making any creative decision about your business, and you're maybe not sure of exactly whether it's the right decision, you can always think back to this one point, to this one valuable question. And that question is, will this serve my ideal customer? Will whatever decision that I am making serve or excite or invigorate my ideal customer to purchase from us or to connect with us or to recommend us? And that's what it comes down to. Your business essentially is a vehicle for your goals to serve your ideal customer. And I know myself, I've been in business for nearly a decade now. I know myself that I would not have made the millions that I have without bearing in mind who my ideal customer is and how exactly I can serve my ideal customer. I want you now to think back to our last session where we're thinking about, does our brand align with our goals and our customer? You see how this is all starting to fit together? This is exactly the work that you need to be doing to build the brand that serves your goals and serves your customer. All of those things, those three elements need to be in alignment for business success. Spend some time now or at the end of this session, of course, and work through these questions. Identify who your ideal customer is. And then I want you to reflect back on what we covered in section 2 about building our ideal brand based on our story. And are those two things in alignment? Do we maybe need to make any changes to our idea of building our ideal brand to make sure that it aligns with our ideal customer? If so, write those notes down on those little pain points where we need to build greater alignment, circle them, and they're the first changes we're going to be making to our brand story. Essentially thinking about how we can make sure that we're in perfect alignment between our brand and our ideal customer.
All right, here we are again at an interval. How can I just ask you, Is this better than you thought it would be? Is it more detailed than you thought it would be? I hope so. I hope you are loving our time here this evening. We've just done a deep dive, of course, into building our brands and identifying identifying our ideal customers. Now, hopefully, this has given some clarity to those that had questions exactly about that. How to identify the type of bride or the type of groom or the type of client that I want to book, and also how to build your brand in alignment. I've been in business for nearly a decade, 8.5 years, something like that. And in that time, I don't mind saying I've generated millions of pounds worth of revenue for the company. And I feel it is, what do I feel? I feel I've been relatively successful, is what I would say. And in this time, the one thing that I hold to know to be truer than anything is it's very much about the alignment. First things first, you want to have a goal. Of course, you want to have an idea of what it is that you want to achieve. And there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever your goal is, whatever your vision is, it's yours and it's your right. That's wonderful. Then we want to build a brand around that, around your story, around your skills, around your knowledge, around what it is you want to do. That's very much what this is all about. And then we want to make sure it aligns with our ideal customer, with our ideal client. Once you have those three things, of course, there's more you need to do, of course. But those three things are a really good start because if you have those three things, then there is clarity and energy flowing through your project, through your business, because you know that you're achieving your ideal customer. Your ideal customer is attracted to your brand, and you know that your brand is helping fulfill your goals because you're the one that's created it. Let me know your questions. Lovely comments coming through. Janine, this is spot on. I'll slip you $20 afterwards. Thank you very much. Eliza, thank you for sharing it. You are very, very welcome. If you're liking what you're reading and what you're hearing, what you're seeing, there is this, but 20 times more inside the Wedding Masterclass. And of course, you have permanent access to it. So please consider the Wedding Masterclass. It's 50% off for you and everybody else that is here tonight. You only have it before everybody else does. Please do consider it as an option. Honestly, if you're loving tonight, you love the masterclass. It's the same tone, it's the same structure, it's the same ideas, but just an awful, awful lot more to guarantee your success. Nikki says clear structure and enough detail. Thank you, Joseph. You're very welcome. I didn't realize how much I needed this, says Tanya. You again. You're welcome. We got you. Meg says better than I thought. Well, good. That's a good thing. I'm very happy. Emma, Jason, thanks so much. Flowing nicely. Loads of good info. Lots to think through for sure from Picnic and Unwind. What a lovely name, Picnic and Unwind. Really great. Joseph, who was your ideal client? I think ours was similar. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's a really great question. My ideal client when I started out of my business was not my ideal client to who I ended up with. My ideal client when I started out was a city center, but kind of professional, but also quite arty, who enjoyed going to galleries, who maybe didn't drive necessarily, and a good salary, sort of 40, 50,000, something like that. And it was very much focused on like sustainable floral design. And over time, my idea changed to be slightly more luxurious and to those kind of planners who maybe worked those kind of clients who worked exclusively with planners, etc., etc. It did change over time for sure. Sam says, is it terrible that I want my ideal customer to give me carte blanche? And trust me, no, not at all, not at all. Because that's what we all want, really. We're all artists, we all want to create. So no, not at all. I would hold dear to that as well. My ideal customer is someone who pays, says Wild and Wild. That is hilarious. Every customer will pay for you, I am sure. Rachel says, what at the start, if you're not attracting your ideal customer, does this mean your brand is all off? Not at all. Not at all, Rachel. So when you're starting out, often I find that my story anyway, my experience, Rachel, was when I was booked, like within my first year, for example, I found for sure that I was kind of what do I say? I think I was booked because people needed a florist, like in Liverpool, for example, where I was when I started my studio. I was booked because people wanted a florist. And over time, my brand awareness increased, the knowledge of like my style and my skills, etc., increased. All of that good stuff increased. But at the very beginning, I feel I was booked because I could provide a skill set as opposed to my actual brand, my authenticity, my story, my knowledge, all of that kind of good stuff. So it can take time. I would say if you're in maybe less than the first 2 years of your business and you're not having people book you for you, then I wouldn't worry about it. But after I'd say like 18 months to 2 years, I would expect people to be booking you because they want you. If that makes sense, that's what I would recommend there. Angeline says, can you clarify USP? Sorry, of course, USP is your unique selling point, your unique selling point, something that makes you stand out from everyone else in the market. What makes you you? That's exactly what essentially your unique selling point is, also known as your USP. Sam says, jokes aside, I didn't know how much I needed to think about. The structure of this is great. You're very welcome. Jude says, how confident were you when you first started out? That's a really good question, Jude. A little of both, I would say. I was pretty confident, but also not very confident. A little of both. I would have moments where I felt more confident in my business and moments where I felt less confident. But over time, the confidence wins out, if that makes sense. So, say, for example, when I began, I had, maybe 4 days a week when I was feeling pretty good about what I was doing, and 3 days a week when I was terrified. Over time, that became 5 days when I was feeling good, and two when I was feeling more terrified. The more you do, the more practice you have, the more experience you have, the better it gets. That's what I can say for sure. Jane says it gives so much clarity. Fabulous. Roberta says, I'm doing my first wedding soon. Any tips? Everything that we're doing here. Everything. We're not actually going into production tips tonight. We're very much on the business, how 7 steps to start your wedding flower business. So not necessarily any production tips necessarily tonight, I'm afraid. But the wedding masterclass has everything you need and more, frankly. Check it out. It's 50% off. Let's take a look right here. Oh my gosh, so many good questions. So many good questions. Maria says, when starting out, is it risky to niche down too much in terms of your ideal customer, e.g., intimate weddings or LGBTQ weddings? Or should you try to get as much exposure and booking opportunities first before narrowing down what types of weddings you'd like to do? Okay, so my advice, that's a wonderful question, Maria. Thank you so much. My advice would be begin begin with the vision of who you want to serve and focus your marketing and your marketing efforts towards that ideal customer. But of course, you will get inquiries and bookings from people who are not in your specific niche, and that's absolutely fine. I think in the first year at least of a business, I took every single job, even if it was something hideous that maybe wasn't my style, because you need cash in the bank. You need money to be coming in, and everything is a learning curve. Everything is a great opportunity. Every opportunity is a good, every wedding or every booking is a good opportunity to learn. So take that. As you get into the business, year 2, year 3, you will find that naturally more of the people that approach you, more of the inquiries tend to be of your niche. So, I mean, I wouldn't decline anything necessarily unless it's very much not going to save you and not in your interest, because you can learn from every opportunity. But as the business grows, you will naturally find that more people that are your niche will find you because they heard about what you do, and you are obviously the vendor that they want. Oh my God, so many good questions. Helen said, what is the best way to go about getting more clients other than a website, Instagram, and Facebook? So, Helen, I'm going to put a pin in that question. We have a huge marketing section coming up in part 4. Let's dive on into that, and then we can circle back around to this question because I'm sure people will have other questions in addition to this particular one once we've dove into the marketing section, because we do look at the best ways to grow your business and to connect with your clients and to get bookings. So it's all to come. So don't worry. Oh my gosh, this is so many good questions. I've had a couple of private questions come in on the Q&A. First question says from Yulia says, I think it's fair to say that people don't get into floristry to make a ton of money rather than for the love of it. I think that's a fair statement. That said, how do you make a good living out of it? I'm fairly new to the business, only a couple of years, just curious about the future, really. Maybe this isn't one for a quick answer. That's for sure. But I will say, floristry in general, of course, I think that most people get into it for the love of it. But I do have to say that it can be very, very profitable. Like full stop. It really, really can. It can be a wonderful, wonderful thing. Very, very profitable. I don't know how to say it without being very arrogant, and I don't want to be arrogant at all. I would say for sure, it can be very profitable, is what I would say. It's just all about it can be very tough when you're starting out because you're not just learning floral design, you're also learning business as well and again, processing business. It can be a lot at the beginning, but if you get into the first couple of years, honestly, the world is your oyster. It really, really is. All right, so many questions have come in. I'm going to put a pin in a couple of these. I've got a private question that's come in, and I can see Subra's question as well. So we'll pin those. We'll dive on into our next session now, part 3 of this evening, and I'll come into those very, very soon, very, very quickly. So thank you so much for all these questions. It's so good. I'm loving the energy. I think this is feeling really, really great. I hope you are loving it too. The Wedding Masterclass, of course, is yours. It's available tonight, only for you guys who are here. It's 50% off, and it features a huge amount of additional bonuses and additional cool things, which really make it a no-brainer, in my opinion. 3 hours of live Wedding Masterclass sessions with me, 3 months of free flower class membership, 3 additional hours of coaching calls with me, a hydration chamber tutorial, the wiring guide, or the wedding wiring guide, and the best flowers for guide. It's honestly, if you're loving tonight, then it's the masterclass. It's the masterclass for you. It's a wicked choice. It's a wicked choice. All right, let's move in. Let's move very stylishly into part 3. Now, part 3 is a big one, guys. It's about half an hour long, something like that, a good 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes. There's lots to be diving on into here. It's going to get really good. So let's begin. We're diving on now to building your portfolio and building your website. All right, let's begin. So far, so good. We have taken a look at the first 3 steps of our process of building your perfect wedding business. We've clarified our intentions, we've begun sowing the seeds to build our brand, and we've identified our key customers. Now, in steps 4 and 5, we're going to be taking a look at how to build our portfolios and also build our own websites. In my role as a teacher, there's probably nothing I bang on about more than working on your portfolio and developing your portfolio and maintaining your portfolio. I could talk about it till I'm blue in the face. And the reasoning behind this is simply because your portfolio is your number 1 sales tool. It is literally the place from which you can sell £1 million or $1 million or more every single year on the back of your own fabulous work. A portfolio is an evolving document. It's not something that remains the same throughout your creative life. And what I know for sure is that the portfolio you start off with will very quickly, I imagine, cause you a little tinge of embarrassment when you look back in several years' time, because your work, your confidence, your style will develop so much as your business develops. When I think back to my initial portfolio, it serves its purpose, and that's what we'll say. But I do look back on it and think, my gosh, when I compare it to what I have in place now for my clients, there is just no comparison as to where my portfolio is today compared to where my portfolio was when I began my business nearly a decade ago. The space and the distance that you travel through experience, through working with clients, through creating bigger, better, bolder events is really miraculous. It's incredible. It's a fantastic journey. And I know for sure that your portfolio will develop over time. But the most important thing we have now is that we begin to develop our initial portfolio so we can really start connecting with and booking our ideal customers.
Now, some of you may be thinking, well, why is a portfolio so important, Joe? Why should I spend my time and resources developing this sales tool or even developing this document? Well, the thing is that your portfolio is essentially a collection of images or a collection of video that really represents your work. And when we build our portfolio, we're really not just building this curation, this collection of images and video. Instead, what we're doing is focusing very much on building confidence and connection and your credentials because your portfolio is the number one tool that a client will use to assess your work. They may have heard, a great reference, from a friend or family member. They may have read some great reviews online, but most people, when it comes to wedding flowers, tend to be incredibly visual. They don't know the specifics of a cultivar of a peony or a rose. They don't know all of the terminology and knowledge that you have for all of the fabulous floral designs that you can do. But one thing I do know for sure is that people can know what they like. They don't have to know a fabulous centerpiece and all of the different types of flowers in it, or the form that you've made, or the placements, the 358. It's not their job. But what anybody can tell you, whether they have a great deal of experience with flowers or not, is whether they like it and whether they want it. And that's why it's so important to build your portfolio, because it builds that confidence that the client will have in your skills. It makes them understand that, yes, you are the person for the job, you are the number one choice. It helps build that bond and build your credibility and your connection with them and the confidence in yourself to make sure that you are the obvious number one choice for their celebration. Now, when we talk about what constitutes a great portfolio, my gosh, I could sit here for several hours discussing all of the different facets with you. It really is a lesson or a course unto itself in a way. But what I would say for sure is that your portfolio is, as we've covered, your number one sales tool. And I do have some additional tips for you to consider as you're beginning to build your own portfolio. So, first things first, nearly 20 years ago, when I started out in the floral industry, your portfolio was usually a big black book which sat on a table in the corner of the shop or the studio, and people would manually flick through it. Those days are well and truly gone, and nowadays a portfolio is very much an online, a digital document which is displayed on your website in a gallery or galleries for people to be able to flick through. You can also have a portfolio available as a PDF, available for download. That's no problem at all. But the general format, the general consensus is that it tends to be a digital document as opposed to a physical document. Now, when it comes to considering what actually goes into your portfolio, you want it to be a variation of your best work. Of course, we want it to be truly reflective of what your style and your ethos and your craft is all about, but at the same time, I want you to show variation because when you're dealing with brides and grooms and wedding clients in general, you need to be able to cover a decent corner of the market when it comes to style. Now, by this, I don't mean at all that you have to be able to create everything, every single style for every single budget. That's not what I'm on about. But you do need to show the richness of what you can do. You need to show the variation of your skills, that you can use round centerpieces, that you can create long centerpieces, that you can create personal flowers, that you can create installations if that is indeed what you want to do. Make sure that your portfolio shows the richness of what you can do, of all of your skills, of all of your aesthetic, so that it really leads the client on a journey through your work. Now, also when you're looking to structure your portfolio, you do want to make sure that you've got good different products in there too. So you're looking at maybe creating some things that are for centerpieces, some things that are for personal flowers, some things that are maybe larger displays like backdrops or urns or installations, for example. Now, the key thing to this is to think about the display of the portfolio, whether you want to have one portfolio with everything in it, or whether on your website or in your PDF you want to have separate galleries or separate sections of your PDF, which are allocated categories for different reasons. Maybe a category or a separate portfolio for personal flowers, maybe, and then maybe a separate category or indeed a separate portfolio or gallery on your website for installations. Now, how you segment your portfolio out will really depend upon what it is that you want to sell. If, for example, you're doing elopement flowers, then maybe you're only focusing on personal flowers for elopements, in which case you can probably have one portfolio or one gallery on your website which is full of beautiful designs of bouquets and buttonholes, and probably that's about it. That might be all you actually need. However, if you're providing a fuller service, maybe you're providing ceremony flowers or centerpieces or larger installations, then you may want to have several galleries that really dedicate the space and the time to showcase everything that you're about. Now, of course, when you're starting out, have one portfolio and build that to a reasonable size before you begin to kind of, break it off into smaller portfolios. So begin with one and then know that you can always divide it up as you progress and as you gain more images of the fabulous weddings that you'll be doing. A good little tip that I always share with all of my students and of course all our flower class members is to open with the big hitters. Open with some fabulous heart-stopping floral designs that create an emotional connection with your audience. And of course, it goes without saying that your portfolio needs to be tailored specifically to your ideal client. And of course, because you're building a cohesive brand, I've no doubt that that will be the case. But you want to make sure that all of the work that you're displaying in your portfolio beautifully photographed, beautifully shot, and that it really connects ideally with your perfect ideal client. And then it's a win-win. Your ideal client will see your fabulous work and book you without a doubt. Now, one final thought I do have to share with you on portfolios is that building a portfolio will take time. It's not something that happens overnight. It will also take considerable investment. Obviously, flowers are not cheap. All of the vessels you need are not cheap. Photographers and videographers are not cheap. But of course, do always remember that your portfolio evolves as you evolve. And what you start out in the beginning will most certainly not be what you end up with. A good portfolio can cost thousands of dollars or thousands of pounds to actually create, but I guarantee you it will make you thousands of dollars or thousands of pounds more in sales. It's a real investment, and something that I was not terribly good at all when I was starting my business is having that patience and that knowledge that things will adapt and change and grow over time. It's all very well at the minute, produce the best work that you can, produce the best work that you think aligns best with your ideal client in this market who you're gearing your brand towards. And then over time, with experience, with opportunities, with investment, you can then grow your own portfolio into something fabulous that maybe at the minute you can't even conceive. But over time, I guarantee you, your portfolio will pay you dividends over the years. It's the number one investment I think that any good floral designer can make, whether they're specializing in the wedding and event business or in retail or anything else. You really need to document your work, and a portfolio is the best way to not just only document your work, but also sell it. We're moving on now into step 5, which is all about building your website. Now, website building is a mini course on its own. It's a huge topic. There's a lot to dive on into. Very technical also. So instead, what we're going to be doing today is focusing on the broad strokes, the central tenets that you need to be aware of when you're looking to build your website, as opposed to the technical step-by-step of how to build a website. The first thing to bear in mind is that when we're building a website, it's essentially your window to the world, especially if you don't have a physical window to the world, i.e., you're not in a retail flower shop. A website is a window to the world for anybody who happens to type in your name and click on that brand name to see more about what you're all about. So you want it to be a fabulous experience, an experience that says everything you want to say about you, that shows them the richness of everything that you can do, all of your skills, all of your talent, all of your services, right there for someone to enjoy and experience in the way that you want them to experience your work. Your website should be branded well, and by that we mean a branded domain name. So, for example, your business or your company or your brand's name should essentially be in the URL so people can type it in and know exactly where they're going and have a good, solid branded experience. And ideally, that brand name should be carried smoothly across all of your social media accounts too. So, for example, if you happen to be Manchester Florist, I would hope you may have something a little bit more interesting than that as your brand, but so be it. If you happen to be Manchester Florist, then you would want manchesterflorist.co.uk as your branded domain name, and then Manchester Florist to be used as your handle across all of your social media accounts on whichever social media platforms that your brand appears on. We also want the website experience to be branded in the sense that it carries through and evokes your brand, using your brand name, your brand logo, the kind of copy and the language that's used to represent your brand, along with imagery and colours as well, that gives a fully branded experience. Your website is essentially your storefront, your window, so you want someone to really feel that they are at your brand when they're on your website. That's a really good little trick of when you're designing a website to think of, hey, is this giving a really accurate representation of what we're all about? Now, there's a couple of different options when it comes to building your website. The most popular by far tend to be two DIY platforms. One is called Squarespace and the second is known as Wix. Now, I don't have any experience myself using Wix, but all of my websites are built on Squarespace and they tend to be very, very easy to build. There are templates available for you to follow, and the general consensus is that for most pages, it tends to be a drag and drop model. So you can take different elements that you want to incorporate on a specific page and drag them into position, and then customize them further with your own digital assets, for example, colors or imagery or copy, whatever kind of attributes you want to have in position on that page. Now, these DIY platforms, Squarespace and Wix, tend to be very affordable, but of course you do have to do the work yourself. The other option is to hire a web designer or a website builder for you who will be able to kind of listen to all of your considerations and all of your demands for what you want the website to be able to handle, and then will implement the work for you. It's entirely up to you which route you decide to go down. Just pick the one that makes the most sense to you. So if you are a little bit tech savvy and you want to give it a whirl, then by all means try it out first, because it can save you an awful lot of money. But if equally technology is not your cup of tea, then maybe you'll save a lot of time by going direct to the source and hiring a web developer or web designer to handle that process for you. Now, when you're considering your website, I want you to bear two key words in mind. The first is utility and the second is engagement. Now, when we talk about utility, the website, of course, needs to be fit for purpose. It needs to be useful. It needs to be easy to navigate for people to kind of find their way around the website, but it also needs to introduce them to you in a way that's really easy and clear to understand how people can work with you. As for the second word, engagement, we of course want it to be engaging. We want it to be your home on the World Wide Web. We want people to be able to find out exactly what you're all about, see the richness of everything that you can do, even from just spending a minute or two on your own website. So if you are building your own site, or if you're working with a web developer or web designer, then bear these words in mind. You want it to obviously be incredibly useful and incredibly engaging for the client at the same time. It goes without saying, a final little tip for you when building your website is please make sure it's accessible for those using a mobile device or a tablet. You don't just want a website that looks fantastic on a desktop, but actually on the mobile phone maybe doesn't look that good or doesn't work that well. In this day and age, I find that 75%, if not more, of my traffic is based on a mobile device. So please do bear that in mind if you are designing your website yourself. Now, when it comes to your website structure, There are four key elements that I think every good wedding flower website needs to have. First up, we have our homepage, and your homepage usually has a section at the very top called the hero. This is the most valuable real estate on your website. That first hero section that people see straight away when the website loads needs to say exactly what you are about in a clear, concise format. Whatever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever your niche, whatever your USP, that's what goes directly on the hero on the homepage. Now, the rest of the homepage needs to be signposted, and what we mean by signposted is it should divert people's attention to various services or offers or other sections of the website that may provide additional information or engagement for your client. More importantly than almost any other facet of the homepage is that you want it to be a really accurate reflection of your business, of your brand, so that when people land on it within the first maybe 10 seconds, they get a real clear understanding of everything that you are about, your services, your style, and what you're offering. And hopefully they'll be intrigued and will connect with whatever copy and images and other information you'll have available there and will want to explore more. Your homepage acts as almost like the big fabulous flower for all of the bees that they want to kind of come towards and get that nectar from. So it needs to be attractive, it needs to be alluring, and really needs to sell your services right from the get-go. The next page you want to have in position is a work with us page, or essentially, more accurately, a how to work with us page. Now, on this page, you're going to want to have some information about your client journey. Now, if that seems like a very intimidating phase, don't worry, we will be diving on into the client journey very, very shortly on our next segment. However, for now, what we want to do is have some information there that kind of leads the client through the process of working with you. So what would be the first steps and what they can expect to follow when they look to book you for their wedding. It doesn't need to be a very, Bible of a page, so there doesn't need to be 1,000 pages of information there. But sometimes I've seen some really nice flowcharts that kind of demonstrate exactly the process of how someone can go about working with your brand. Now, it's a really interesting thing to consider because most people who will be coming to you for their wedding flowers, they won't necessarily have worked with a wedding florist before. They might not know anything about the process. So this is your chance, this is your opportunity to lay it out incredibly clearly about what your clients can expect when they book you for their wedding flowers. The third point that you want to have on every wedding flower homepage is, of course, your portfolio. Now, it can be several galleries you can have on there, it could be one gallery that you can have on there. The choice is yours. The most important things, however, is that it's really clear and easy to navigate, and you've got fabulous quality images or video there for people to flick through and admire. How you structure your portfolio is entirely up to you, but you do want to ideally make sure that you're crediting every vendor or supplier, or especially photographer or videographer that has worked with you to create that content. It's just good form, to be thanking and acknowledging and crediting the people that you've worked with. As mentioned, your portfolio can also be available to download from your website. So it could be a selection of fabulous pages that show everybody everything you've done and just how brilliant you are, but also there could be a little button there that enables someone to download a smaller section of the portfolio as a PDF. That can be a great sales tool also. The final segment that you want to have on your website is, of course, your contact page. For the obvious reasons, of course, you want people to be able to get in touch with you, to reach out to you with their inquiry. Now, these are the four fundamentals that every good wedding flower website needs: a homepage, some information on how to work with us, a portfolio, and a contact page. There are, of course, several more pages that you can add and several more fabulous things you can place on a website, but these are the four essentials that I want you to focus on at the very beginning of starting your wedding flower business.
All right, lots of technical information there this evening, as I'm sure you've seen, all about building essentially the website, building everything else that comes with it, all of that technical detail you've got right there that you need to be focusing on as you look to build everything together, to put everything together in a way that will make sense to your consumers. Now, we did have a handful of little questions which I didn't get around to answering in our last journey, so we're going to begin with those right now. First up, I have a private question which has come into us from Travis, I think. It says, you mentioned building a brand around your experience. I am not a florist, but it's my dream to be. I know I have the ability, but not yet the experience. How would you advise one goes about this? I have a full-time job, and any advice would be welcome. Okay, so that's a great question. If you're just starting out right now, and maybe you don't know exactly kind of what your experience is and how you can build on that, what I would say for sure is to begin building around your idea of your story that you want to tell. So, what are you drawn to? What flowers? What style? What vision do you have for the business? That's what I would build it around. And then as the business grows, you can then tailor that to incorporate your experience. Let's take a look. There was one other question, which I think was from Subra. Let me see. Yes, who said, hey, I'm starting out and my first lovely client has a budget of £1,000. Given how hard we work on weddings, is this way too low to accept? As a first-time wedding florist, should I have a minimum spend or accept as little as 1K for a good seeming client? All right, so I would say this is a really interesting question, Subra, and I loved it when I saw it. I would say for sure it depends on the expectations of what people want for that initial £1,000. If it's a bridal bouquet, a couple of bridesmaids, and some buttonholes, for example, well, maybe that could work really, really well. Maybe it's that's not too excessive. For example, it's pretty easy, pretty simple to do that for £1,000. But if someone wants, 20 table centerpieces and a top table design and an archway, then maybe that's not so viable. So I would say for sure, take a good look at the expectations for that amount and then see what you feel could work really well, essentially. Like see how you feel that how possible that is, I would say. For me, it's not a no, especially when starting out. Every sale is a sale, but you do want to make sure it's going to be profitable for you. So that's where I would begin. All right, a couple more questions come in. Nikki says, what about your search criteria? So your website is the first page of search results. Any advice on that? Yes, keywords are super, super important, and keywords need to be in alignment to your key market. So again, think back to your ideal customer and what their search criteria would be. What would they type in when they would look to book you for their wedding as their wedding vendor, their wedding supplier? From there, you can make sure that your homepage and indeed the rest of your site is littered with those keywords. So it's a really good starting point to just begin to generate hits and links based on your own site. Devana says tips on building the portfolio for IG and website when still trying to book your first client. What design to put dollars towards first? Okay, cool. I would say for sure that when you're building any business, it will definitely require some investment. So when you're looking to build your website or your portfolio or your social media, for example, grow at the rate that you can, grow at something that feels sustainable for you, and invest when you can, what you can, is what I would say. It has to obviously be viable, right? It has to be something that makes sense for you. It has to be sustainable, but it will take investment for sure. There's no kind of way we can kind of cut through that, but grow at the rate that makes sense for you. Look to build the same content. So for example, any images you can use on your portfolio can be used on your Instagram, they can be used on your website. It can all be proliferated beautifully throughout your entire brand as it should be. So anything that you are designing for your Instagram, your portfolio, etc., it's all coming from the same source, aiming to build the same brand to reach the same ideal customer. All right, fabulous. We are doing very, very well here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sticking it out with me. I know we are 90 minutes in, 9-0. We still have a half an hour session to go. It's a big one. There is lots to dive into. We're going into now probably the most important part of our session, all about the client journey, all about contracts, and all about marketing. One last question from Maria, and then we'll dive in. Maria says, what's the best way to build your portfolio when just starting out and don't have any bookings yet? Huge question there, Maria. I would say you need to begin designing. You have to invest what you can, where you can, in a way that makes sense to you. Obviously, flowers are have a cost to them, unless you have a fabulous garden. Maybe you can pick from that. But you do need to begin designing with flowers. Do it very, very small, in a small way. Design with maybe a couple of bunches of flowers from your wholesaler or from your garden or from flower farmers, wherever you can, and then go from there. I do have a full session, a full 4-part series on how to build your portfolio. It's inside Flower Class. It's $42 a month. I don't know if you're a member, Maria, but $42, it'll be worth that class alone. It's a full like 2-hour deep dive into how to build a portfolio. You should check it out if you can, for sure. I think it'll give you everything you need on how to start a portfolio, how to build a portfolio, what to look for, all the rest of it. All right, let's take a look now. Wild and Wild says, it's in your opinion, is it worth having a tab for this essential supplies venues? Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great idea. Why not? The more you can put on your website that builds trust, that builds confidence in you, the absolute better. So Wild and Wild, go for that. I think that is absolutely fabulous. All right, we're going to dive in now to our final part. It's the big one. Get a refresh, get a glass of water, sharpen that pencil. We are now going to be diving into part 4 of the client journey, contract marketing. This is the sexy bit. This is where it gets really, really good. Thank you so very much for your bookings already, for joining us on the Wedding Masterclass. I'm thrilled to have several of you already join us. It's a very, very exciting time. And I'm pretty excited to be doing this with you. It's going to be a really, really good time. As mentioned, it's 50% off, 50% off for the next couple of days only. Please do check it out if you're loving tonight's content and you want to see more. Without further ado, let's dive into part 4, client journey, contracts, and marketing of our 7 steps to build your wedding flower business. Let's take a look at step 6 and steps 7. So far, we've covered 5 individual sessions, all the way through from clarifying our intentions, building our brand, identifying our customer, building our portfolio, and of course, building our website. In today's session, we're going to be taking a look at point 6 and 7. Point 6, the client journey, and point 7, marketing. If you're ready, let's dive on in. The client journey. Now, what do we mean by the client journey? A client journey is essentially the process by which you expect your clients to work with you. It's the order of events or the order of actions that will take place from the very initial consultation to any follow-up care you provide post the wedding. In a perfect world, you'll want this process outlined on your website, usually on a page titled Work with Us or How to Work with Us, something of that kind of ilk. The reasoning for that is it gives prospective customers a great idea about what the journey contains, about what is coming up for them should they book with you. It's really, really helpful to have this really displayed very clearly on your website, because then everybody knows what will happen next. Everyone knows the order by which things will happen, which is a win in itself. The more information you can provide to your clients in advance, the absolute better, because then chances are they'll read the information and will have less questions for you, which you'll have to offer and respond to when it comes to the process and kind of where they are at in their journey and what they can expect to happen next. Now, it's a great idea, of course, to have this information outlined on your website, but you could also look to include it in your initial welcome literature. So that could be included maybe if you have a version of your portfolio available on your website to download as a PDF, you could include it there. Or maybe as you respond to initial inquiries, maybe via email, you could have a little PDF there with this information included for how you expect your clients to be able to work with you. Now, the interesting thing about the client journey is even though there is a standard
client journey, of course, it can be nuanced and adapted for each and every individual flower business. Now, this is because, frankly, different studios may want to give their clients different processes, or maybe they have a different way of doing things that reflects their goals, or maybe the offers that they present to their client. It's interesting, though, to know that you can tailor this to incorporate more steps should you want a more evolved or more detailed client journey, or it can be a really simple set of steps for you to follow as well. In short, a good, clearly displayed client journey sets and manages expectations, and it protects you and your business. Let's take a look now at the typical client journey. Now, the client journey will begin with some form of initial contact. Okay, so it could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be a message on social media. Whatever format that initial contact comes in, that is your chance to respond in a timely, professional manner, usually within 24 to 48 hours, and to provide information on the very next steps. Maybe it's going to be booking someone in for a consultation, or maybe it's simply sending across a portfolio or answering a few questions. Once the initial contact has taken place, usually it will develop then forward into a consultation, but not always. As aforementioned, there could be the odd occasion where maybe someone just reaches out to inquire about your portfolio or about a particular product you may offer. They may not be ready yet to book and proceed to that consultation process, but always bear in mind to be absolutely polite and professional on every single inquiry you receive. Just because someone maybe doesn't want to book a consultation with you today doesn't necessarily mean that they won't want to book a consultation with you in a couple of weeks' time, or a couple of months' time, or even a couple of years' time. Now, if all goes to plan, following on from your initial contact, you'll then move the client forward to offering a consultation and booking that in your diary. Now, the consultation can take place face to face, maybe in your studio or at another venue, or alternatively, they can take place remotely using an app or program such as Zoom, for example. Now, the consultation is really where your marketing and sales skills come to the fore. That's when you'll obviously be listening to your client's information and listening to their wishes and their expectations for their wedding and celebration. And equally, it's a great opportunity for you to sell your skills, sell your designs, and what opportunities that you may have available or that may spring to mind to offer this particular client. A consultation will usually last around an hour, but that does vary depending upon the nature of the celebration, the event they're planning, and of course on various other things as well, depending on how much is to discuss. Is it a multi-day event, or is it a single-day event, etc., etc. Following on from the consultation, you want to give your client a really clear proposal. Of course, you want the proposal to go out as soon as possible. I would say ideally taking place upon the expectations that you set. The proposal usually will go out in a digital format as a PDF or something similar, but they can also be sent old school on what your price attached, or alternatively, you can offer a full proposal, which may include other additional items or additional work, such as mood boards or color themes, or maybe full additional information. What I find is that people who are often working to smaller weddings will usually offer an initial quote, which will maybe just have the items listed and a price available, and then maybe larger weddings require a more fuller proposal, something that really reflects the scope of the event. That said, I know a lot of florists that will look to offer an initial proposal with pricing and then only offer a full detailed proposal once the wedding has been booked with them. It's entirely your choice as to which option you want to go for and what you think suits your business and your brand best. Now, assuming all goes well and your client loves your proposal, they will then want to book, and it's at this point that we need a binding legal contract with terms set out as to how you expect the business to be conducted. We'll be looking at the contract in a little more detail. Unfortunately, I cannot provide provide a full contract here for you here today, simply because, of course, they are varied wildly depending upon the legal placements and the legal stipulations of your country, area, or state. So it is something that you will need to get in place that follows the applicable laws of your area or state or country. Now, once the contract has been signed, you will then usually stipulate the amount of either further meetings or sample meetings that may be required. Further meetings can be discussions, of course, either face-to-face or remotely, as the wedding plans begin to solidify as you draw closer to the wedding date, whereas a sample meeting is usually a meeting in which you will mock up a sample of the actual centerpiece or bouquet, for example, for the client to see in person. I, in my studio, would always charge for sample meetings, but I have indeed worked for companies in the past that offered sample meetings free of charge. Again, it's a decision that you may want to make depending on what works best for your business, and of course, for the size of the wedding or the scope of the wedding that you are dealing with. After all meetings have taken place, of course, then the balance will usually be paid, and then production commences. That will take place the week of the wedding as you're ordering all of your flowers and getting all of your items together to produce the wedding. Following the wedding date, you would then look to offer some aftercare. Maybe it's a review of your services or requesting photographs or a thank you to the client for working with them and how sharing your thoughts on how wonderful it's been for you guys to work together. So this right here represents what I would say the standard client journey all the way through from initial contact right down through to aftercare. But of course, it can be an incredibly nuanced process, and you will want to tailor it to your business to make sure that your process really achieves the goals that you want them to achieve. Now, before we wrap up this particular section of our module today, I do want to just provide you with a couple of additional hints and tips when it comes to navigating a contract. Now, although you've literally just heard me say that I cannot provide a full legal contract for you today, simply because it would be an immense amount of work to have a contract available that could serve every single floral designer in every single country across the world and of course be kept up to date, it is going to be something that I can provide some additional clarification on what you should be looking for. Now, first things first, you may be able to get a contract directly from a legal professional, such as a solicitor, and have one created bespoke for you. But before you do that, do take a look online and look for contract templates that are available in your region, your state, your country, for example. In fact, the contract that I use within my own studio is very much tailored from a template which I purchased from a legal professional. So we were able to take and download a template, and well, rather purchase a template from the professional's website, and then work with that particular vendor to provide any tweaks we wanted to the contract before sending it out to our clients. Of course, the choice is yours. If you want something entirely bespoke, then that's absolutely fine. But equally, if you just want a standard, simple contract that you can then tweak or amend as needed, then do look online for templates, as it can save you a significant amount of money. Now, although I can't provide full contract templates here for you, what we can do is dive into some of the elements that you're going to want to look out for when providing or creating your own contract. First things first, let's go through what a good contract will provide, beginning with an outline of your services. So it will obviously dictate which party you are and which party the client is, and the services that are going to be provided for this particular event or celebration. A good contract will also denote your creative control and emphasize the nature of natural products. Now, this is really incredibly important. We as floral designers are working with fresh floral product, which of course can have nuances of color and size and scent, and sometimes there is very little we can do to control the detail of those nuances and how they can come together. So what you want to do is have a clause in there that denotes that indeed you're working with natural product, and of course you will endeavor to make sure that you're providing everything that the client client would like, but that then you also retain the creative control to make substitutions or to make amendments to the order depending upon the availability of specific floral elements. It's also worth noting that a good contract will outline the standard structural things which you may expect often to be found within a contract, such as how you accept payments or how you will deal with complaints or cancellations, and also it will outline your responsibilities as to what the client can expect and from your conduct and from your services throughout the length of this contract. The key thing is to make sure that your contract is entirely valid within your country or state or region or area, because the whole point of a contract, of course, is to protect you should things, I'm sure very rarely, happen to go south, and maybe you are in a position where you have to enforce the terms of this contract. The last thing you want to do is to be stood behind a contract that you don't fully believe in, or a contract that maybe you're not entirely sure that will protect you in the way you need to be protected. So it's well worth investing in a good, solid contract that is fully legal, checked by a legal professional in your country, state, or area. I will say, for a little bit of peace of mind, that over the 10 years nearly that I've been in business, I have very rarely had disappointing or stressful exchanges with clients. 99% of the time, things have been wonderful, and I've actually never had to seek legal advice as to how to proceed with a difficult client, but there have been times when I have had to point out certain elements of a contract, maybe with regards to delivery or the nature of natural products, for example, and then maybe there have been some comments or some discussions had around those points. I do have to say, though, I have been so thankful to have a contract in place with all of my clients, because it just gives you peace of mind about what you're providing and where you stand. And at the end of the day, you are a professional. You deserve a contract, just as any other vendor that's working on a wedding will have a contract in place, so should you. So if you don't have one in place, please do begin to kind of research this and think of how you can incorporate it and have it in position within your own client journey. Moving on now to step 7, marketing to your customer. Now, we have gone through quite a journey here already. As you know, you've worked with me through the previous 6 steps. All of that really is ideological and it's foundational. It's all about building up a really clear picture and a really clear operational system for how you want your business to operate. It's kind of building the flower, if that makes sense. And now we need to go out and attract the honeybees. That's what marketing is all about. Marketing, at the very core of it, is all about assessing your product, figuring out who you want to sell it to, and making it look and appeal wonderfully to that specific client. It's the number one way for you to grow your business. Now, in any business, there are only ever 2 ways really to increase revenue. The first way, of course, is to attract new customers, and the second way is to increase the average sale. Those are kind of the only 2 ways that we can look to get new revenue or to increase the revenue into our business, and good marketing helps you achieve both. Now, even though we know this, how do we demonstrate to potential customers that we are the very best choice for their needs? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Good marketing is all about building confidence. It's about building your community and your relationships. It's about building sales for your business and therefore about building your business. Now, in this day and age, there is a huge amount of marketing opportunities and marketing activities that we can explore, but they generally can be drawn into 2 individual categories, into real life or physical marketing activities and digital marketing activities. Now, although marketing is a huge module for us to be diving into another time within the Flower Class membership, let's take a look now at both physical marketing activities or real world marketing activities and digital marketing activities, so you can decide which ones work best for you and maybe begin to pull together your own marketing strategy to help you launch your wedding flower business. Let's begin with digital marketing. Now, the first question I want you to answer for me is which platform resonates strongly with your ideal client? Okay, so for example, most people in the world, we know from the statistics, will look to use Facebook or Instagram. But maybe if you're targeting a very Gen Z clientele, maybe TikTok is the platform that you want to be working to. Equally, if maybe in your own practice you use a lot of arts and crafts and lovely little fabulous handmade details, then maybe your ideal client may spend a bit more time on Pinterest. So begin by picking a platform that resonates really well with your own ideal client. Now, in my advice, I would recommend picking one platform and committing to it for regular posts. There's nothing worse than seeing a platform that's been left dormant by a brand. They haven't posted for 2 or 3 years, for example. Keep everything concise and keep everything consistent. And the best way to do this, especially when you're starting out with a small business, is to select one platform and commit to regular posts. Now, when we're talking about posting, you'll be wanting to communicate and build, your community on there, frankly, as often as possible. On TikTok, for example, they initially recommend posting up to 5 times a day, whereas Facebook and Instagram is more like 1 time per day. And maybe depending on different platforms, you'll have different rates of posting to really kind of gear you towards the best results. Well, I've got a few extra tips for you that I can share with you here about how to achieve really great traction when it comes to digital marketing. The first step is to speak to people. And remember, at the end of every single like or every single comment, there is an actual person there. So speak to those people as if they are people. Now you're probably thinking, well, Joseph, that isn't the most deep bit of knowledge that I've ever been presented with. It's not the most fabulous amount of wisdom, but you would be so surprised at how many people scream their products at their audience instead of taking the time to really kind of share their advice or knowledge or information with a real person. Another great complementary strategy to this is to sell the benefits of your products and not necessarily the features. Sometimes a lot of people will be talking about the features of the product, about how shiny it is, or how new it is, or how fabulous it is, but what can really work very well is to talk about what they will actually achieve or receive if they purchase the particular product. So instead of giving the specifics of a bridal bouquet, for example, where the orchid came from, or how long the bouquet is, or how white the petals are, instead it can be a really interesting marketing tool, a really good converting marketing tool, might I add, to talk about how the bouquet will smell, or how the bouquet will make the client feel, or just how elegant the bouquet will be as an accompaniment to the dress or outfit they're wearing that particular day. If you focus on selling the benefits, often that will prick people's ears more than selling the features. Some additional tips I can share with you, for example, are how to look to build a community around your brand. Now, this is a really, really big topic, but it kind of ties in nicely to what I talked about just a few minutes ago about trying to speak to people instead of screaming your products at people. I mean, when you think about it like that, imagine you're all sitting in a hall or a building. You can imagine how much more of a nice conversation you'll have with people if you're actually conversing with them and replying to their comments and liking their posts, as opposed to just kind of screaming everything you're trying to sell in people's faces. Also, on social media, you want to be sure to be sharing your story, the expertise, the knowledge, every good bit of thing that you have, you want to be sharing on social media with your clients. It's all about selling the brand to connect with your ideal customer. And straight from digital into real world marketing or physical marketing. How exciting is that? Now, when we refer to real world marketing, we're talking about so many different things. First up, and the most common way a lot of people will consider to be marketing their wedding business, is to be attending things such as fairs or showcases or events. Often they're kind of open days or open evenings or networking events. Now, the key little thing that I like to consider when thinking about these kind of events is how in alignment are these events with my brand and with my ideal customer. I know for sure that as soon as you start your wedding flower business, you will have lots of opportunities ahead of you to showcase your company, usually at a cost, at fairs and showcasing events and open evenings and open days and all the rest of it. But of course, all of these events have a cost attached to them with your time and flowers and materials and all the rest of it. So do make sure before you commit to any of these events that you're really taking a good look at, is it in alignment with your ideal customer? That is the key thing. If your ideal customer isn't going to be there, or maybe wouldn't be at this particular wedding showcase or at this particular venue, then maybe it's not the right venue for you. The second aspect to real world marketing is to focus on introductions. As a new business, nobody is going to know who you are or what you're offering. So by having a slew of introductions ready to reach out to planners and venues and suppliers is a really great way to network within the industry. I'm a big believer in reaching out to suppliers that you love just to introduce yourself, to let them know that you love their work, and if there's ever an opportunity to collaborate or to work together, you would love that. You never know how friendly and open other people can be, so it really does work to spend some time crafting a fabulous introductory email, maybe with an attached PDF or other documentation to reach out to others. It can be a really, really great first step. The other key factor of real world marketing events are things such as styled shoots or collaborative shoots. Again, these can be great opportunities to get in parts of the industry that maybe you wouldn't have previously had access to. So, for example, you can collaborate with suppliers that you may have never collaborated with on the past, or indeed, maybe you're working at venues that you haven't had the chance to work at previously. It can be a great opportunity to open new doors and meet new people. The only caveat that I would provide with this particular idea of engaging with styled shoots or collaborative shoots is, for sure, again, ask yourself that alignment question. Are the kind of vendors that I'll be working with in alignment with who my ideal client is? Would my ideal client be more likely to book this particular venue or to book these particular vendors? Does it flow? Does it align? If it does, then you're on to a winner. If it's something that maybe you feel is a bit of a curveball, or even worse, that you can never imagine your ideal customer booking this particular venue or booking this particular vendor, then maybe it's one to skip, and instead you can use your time and resources to invest in your own production for your own shoot or for your own video shoot, depending upon the content it is that you want to make. If I had to summarize my marketing experience in just one tip for you to take away from this session here today, it would be to examine alignment. Now, I know I've used that word a lot over the previous sessions that we have within our signature series today, but the thing that really makes the difference for me is based on alignment. If you think, for example, that your ideal client would not be at a particular show, or wouldn't maybe be enamored by a particular collaborative event, or you don't think for whatever reason that something is a good fit for you, then you don't have to do it. Instead, look around for other opportunities that do align with your ideal client and that tick the boxes for your goals too. There are so many marketing activities you can do, so many strategies, so many opportunities, so sifting through them can be difficult. If you're struggling, always lean back on alignment. Picture who your ideal client is, picture your brand, and if it doesn't align with those two things, then pass on the opportunity. Many more were just around the corner, I'm sure.
All right, there we go. Bang on the nose. 2 hours of live, detailed content, 7 steps on how to build your wedding flower business. We're now gonna really round out today's session with essentially a good 10-minute Q&A session before we round out our session here tonight. So thank you so much for all of your questions. They're wonderful, all coming in. I'm going to work through them now, one at a time. And then, of course, we will round out today's session. Before we do, I must say, the Wedding Masterclass, if you've loved tonight's deep dive, if you've loved all the information, all the tips, all the strategy that I have shared, please do check out the Wedding Masterclass. It's 50% off, 50% off for attendees only here tonight. And it has a ton of juicy bonuses with it as well. So do check that out. All right, a couple of questions which have come in. First of all, let's begin. Christina has messaged said, how are the usual slash best payment conditions? All at once or slash a prepayment? So as a general rule, you will usually accept a deposit, usually in the region of 20 or 25%, and the remaining balance will usually be due, I would say, 8 weeks, 6 weeks before the wedding date. So nice and simple there. Of course, it does depend entirely on how you want to run your business. And obviously, different vendors and different floral designers will operate in different ways. But as a general rule, a deposit of a percentage somewhere between maybe 20 and 50%, and then a final balance due anywhere between maybe, I don't know, 10 weeks and 4 weeks, depending, of course, on your own terms and conditions. Fabulous question come through from Subra. Are there any notable sources of data that can help one work out where to best invest one's limited market resources of time and money? You know what? That's a really good question, and I don't have anything necessarily that I could point you to data-wise with regards to the floral or necessarily even wedding industry, because they are such niche industries that often a little bit more a little bit more specific, to be fair, or they're a little bit more general with regards to their data. What I can say is from my own experience, and that's all I can really offer and speak from. That's a lot of what my teaching is from my own personal experience of 10 years nearly, 8.5, 9 years of being in business myself, and about 20 years, very nearly, of being in the floral industry. And I would say the best way to invest, I don't really believe necessarily in giving my cash to Mark Zuckerberg and advertising on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. Invest invest in yourself, invest in your portfolio, invest in flowers, beautiful photography, beautiful videography, and get your name out there by building a brand around what you do, around your story, around your energy. That's what I would say for sure. I'm going to move on very quickly. We've got a lot of questions to go through. Fabulous questions here tonight. Maria said, how do you build credibility with your brand and skills as a new floral designer with no specific floral design credentials or expertise? With that being said, does your wedding masterclass provide a certificate of completion or a website badge that we can use to add to our credibility or credentials? Okay, so to be fair, Maria, credibility, I find it builds over time, in my opinion. It's not something that, you can drop in on and have it immediately, especially in an artistic industry and a niche industry like the wedding industry. It simply takes time. And again, kind of similar to my suggestions to Subra, where invest in yourself. That's what I say. The more time you can invest in your own brand, your own style, and really documenting what you're creating, building such a solid portfolio of work with fabulous imagery, fabulous videography that really shows me everything about the richness of what you can do. That builds what we like to call a moat, as in a castle moat around your brand that really helps you stand out exactly as you are. You can be the most talented floral designer in the world, but you have to show people, you have to show how gifted you are, how brilliant you are, all of your ideas. And it just takes time. It's consistency that's the key to this. If you're consistently sharing every single day different aspects of what you can do, different styles, different designs, you can't go wrong. You'll build it over time. You'll end up where you want to go. The Wedding Masterclass does indeed provide a badge that you can add to your website that is brand new that we're offering this year, and we certainly can offer certificates as well. We've actually never been asked for certifications, but I would be very happy if you were to join. It would be no problem to have them. We have them for our school, for our hands-on school, so it'd be no issue at all to offer them for the Wedding Masterclass. No problem at all. Let's take a look. Next question. Eliza said, huge thank you, Joseph, for being so generous. It was worth getting up before dawn. I mean, can I put that on my website, Eliza? I appreciate, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Let's check this out. Great session, fabulous. It all sounds delicious. Final question then, coming in. The same someone said, great evening as always. Thank you. If I'm already a Flower Class member, what extra will I gain from signing up to this masterclass? Okay, so first things first, this masterclass is a permanent purchase. So obviously, when you're a Flower Class member, you're essentially kind of like Netflix, right? You're signing up to view the content, to have access to the content. But as soon as you stop becoming a Flower Class member, you don't have access to anything, and that's fine. With a Wedding Masterclass, you purchase, you can download it, it's yours for life. It's really wonderful in that sense. So you will get exclusive ownership of the content that you can use time and time again. In addition to this as well, everything that's in the Wedding Masterclass is available nowhere else. It's not in Flower Class, it's not anywhere else. It is distinctive and it's set up in a way that allows you to work through the content to build the business as you go through it. It's not available anywhere else. That you won't find any, the content doesn't overlap. You won't find any masterclass content in the Flower Masterclass. Hope that helps. Helen, thank you so much for your lovely comments. Selena, thank you for your lovely comments. Wheeled and Wild, I hope to see you in the Masterclass. That'd be fabulous. We've got a lot to share. Tanya from India, thank you so very much for staying up till 2:30 a.m. I'm so glad it was worth it. Lovely to meet you and take care. Hope to see you very soon. Michelle says, I'm new to Flower Class this year and I'd absolutely love it. I would 100% recommend it. Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Tagisti, thank you. You are very, very welcome. Jessica says, thank you so much, Joseph, for the session. There's always so much to learn in the wedding floristry world. Oh my gosh, this is kind of amazing. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Like, it's incredible. Thank you so very much for joining me. It's been a good session, 2 hours plus. I hope you've enjoyed it. Replays will go out tomorrow. I hope you love them. I hope it's amazing. And they'll be available for 1 week only. Please, please, please do check out the Wedding Masterclass. I can't recommend it enough. It is 50% off, but only for the next few days. Please check it out. There's a ton of bonuses there. It's got everything you need and more to build your perfect wedding flower business, honestly. It's been a total pleasure. Thank you so very much for joining me this evening. Do check out the Wedding Masterclass. Honestly, I think you will love it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the time and joining me. I hope it's been useful. I hope it's been really, really positive. And to all my Flower Class members, I will see you in just a couple of weeks for our live coaching call. Thank you so very much for joining me this evening, everyone. Take care. Lots of love. And I hope to see you on another call very, very soon. Have a good one.